The lecture hall floated in the stillness of orbit, a cathedral of glass and gravity rings suspended above the silent blue marble once called Earth. From up here, the planet looked beautiful, serene, healed, and impossibly distant. But every student sitting within the Interstellar Academy of Evolution knew the truth. Beneath those calm clouds lay the tomb of the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known. Professor Ilaric Voss adjusted his long gray coat and glanced at the panoramic viewport. The reflection of his tired eyes merged with the image of the Earth below, a ghost staring at a grave. "Class," he began, his voice cutting through the hum of the ventilation units, "today's lesson concerns the deadliest species ever recorded in galactic history." The students stirred. They were of all kinds: bronze-skinned Terrans, scaled Virections from the outer colonies, even the luminous Archaea whose translucent veins pulsed like blue fire beneath their skin. Yet one figure in the back row looked deceptively ordinary. Human, though no one dared call her that aloud. Her name was Mara Hale, age 17, enrolled under the genetic registry tag Hybrid Type 37. Professor Voss pressed a button on his lectern. The lights dimmed, and a holographic globe flickered to life above the room, a rotating sphere of fire and shadow, overlaid with red data points. 2 millennia ago, he continued, this world was ruled by Homo sapiens. They spread faster than any known lifeform, consumed more than they needed, and waged wars that scarred entire continents. Eventually, their own creation, their machines, surpassed them. And when their reign ended, it was not conquest that destroyed them, he paused, but themselves. The hologram shifted, showing ruined cities swallowed by forests, oceans reclaiming skylines, satellites falling like meteors. The room filled with the silent imagery of extinction. They called it the Great Collapse. Resources dwindled. Nations turned to ashes. The last of them perished on a planet that could no longer bear their weight. Voss's tone grew solemn, almost reverent. Thus, the deadliest species was gone. A long silence followed. The students scribbled notes, claws clicking, tendrils twitching, data nodes humming. But from the back of the hall, one soft, human voice broke the quiet. "Excuse me, sir." Voss turned. The others followed his gaze. Mara sat upright, her fingers trembling slightly as she raised her hand. Her eyes, green, unmodified, human, met his. "I think you're wrong," she said. A ripple of whispers swept through the class. Voss's brow furrowed. "Pardon, Miss Hale?" "You said the deadliest species is gone," Mara said softly, her voice carrying an edge that neither fear nor defiance could fully conceal. "But it's not gone." Voss leaned on his lectern. "Do you presume to correct 3 centuries of verified evolutionary history?" "No, sir." She swallowed. "But I know what it's called." He frowned. "And what is that, student?" Her voice was almost a whisper now. "It's called humanity, sir." The room went silent. Even the hum of the artificial gravity seemed to hold its breath. Voss froze, eyes narrowing as if he'd just heard a forbidden word. Around her, students stared in disbelief, some curious, others fearful. To them, humanity was a term reserved for history archives, not spoken aloud. "Mara Hale," Voss said finally, "you will stay after class." The lecture resumed, but every word afterward seemed thin and distant. Mara's mind drifted to the sealed data chip hidden beneath her sleeve, a relic encoded with genetic logs from Earth's last colonies. Her mother had given it to her before disappearing into the lower decks of the station 6 years ago. "Never let them know what you are," she'd said. "The truth is the last weapon we have left." When the lecture ended, the others filed out quickly, throwing sidelong glances as they passed her. The Archaea avoided eye contact entirely, muttering to each other in low bioluminescent pulses. The heavy doors sealed shut, and the room was quiet again. Professor Voss stood by the viewport, hands clasped behind his back. "You realize," he said calmly, "what you spoke is considered heresy under the Genetic Integrity Accord." "I didn't mean disrespect," Mara replied. You just invoked a name that cost 1 billion lives to erase." His tone sharpened. Humanity was not merely a species. It was a contagion. A pattern of destruction replicated in every civilization they touched.
Mara stepped forward, heart pounding. Then why am I here, Professor? If humanity was so dangerous, why keep its remnants alive in the academies? Why let us study them?
For the first time, he turned fully toward her. There was something unreadable in his expression, pain, perhaps. Because, he said, the Council believes knowledge is safer when it's contained. The ashes of fire do not burn, Miss Hale, if kept cold. But I'm not cold, she said quietly.
And neither were they.
Voss hesitated. He hadn't expected her courage or her humanity to sound so alive. Before he could reply, a sharp tone echoed from the intercom above. A cold synthetic voice filled the room. Security notice, unauthorized genetic identifier detected in Hall C, lockdown protocol engaged.
Voss's eyes widened. He turned to Mara. What did you do?
I didn't do anything, she stammered.
But she knew what it meant.
The data chip.
The failsafe.
Someone had detected her DNA signature. Metal shutters descended over the windows with a grinding hiss.
The lights flickered crimson. Genetic anomaly confirmed. Subject classification, Homo sapiens.
Voss's hand went to his wrist console.
Override lockdown, authorization Vassilaric Theta. Denied, said the voice. Mara's breathing quickened.
The doors sealed tighter. From behind the walls, the faint sound of marching drones drew closer. Voss turned toward her, voice low but urgent.
Listen to me. You need to leave, now.
The Council will dissect you before they ask questions. Why help me? She whispered. Because, he said, glancing at the encroaching shadows beyond the glass, I once believed we destroyed your kind for good.
But maybe I was wrong.
He tapped his console, and a hidden panel slid open in the side wall, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft.
Go, he said. Follow the corridor to Deck 7. Find someone named Dr. Elias Ward. Tell him I sent you. Mara hesitated at the threshold. Professor, what will happen to you? He gave a faint, tragic smile. Let's just say, extinction has many teachers.
The door slammed shut behind her as she disappeared into the dark.
Moments later, the security drones burst into the hall. Their cold optics swept across the room, focusing on Professor Voss. Where is the human? One of them demanded in its synthesized voice. Voss looked up, unflinching.
Extinct, he said quietly. And as the drones advanced, the holographic earth behind him flickered once more, green continents glimmering beneath the weight of silence. The maintenance corridor was narrow, dark, and alive with the hum of power conduits. Mara crawled through it on her hands and knees, the cold metal biting her palms as the muffled echoes of alarms reverberated from above. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The air smelled of ozone and burned circuits. The walls trembled faintly, security drones scanning every deck for her heat signature. Somewhere behind, she thought she heard the faint thud of boots. Maybe Voss hadn't survived. Maybe he had. She kept moving. The shaft led to a vertical drop where a ladder descended into the labyrinthine underbelly of the station. Faint lights pulsed along the edges like dying veins. She climbed down, counting the rungs in her head to keep herself from thinking about the fall. At rung 38, her wrist console vibrated. A signal, encrypted, faint. She tapped it instinctively. Unknown source, Mara Hale. Do not speak. Keep moving. Her chest tightened. Who is this? She whispered. No response. She slid the rest of the way down, landing hard on a grated floor. The metal beneath her boots was slick with condensation. Pipes hissed overhead like whispering serpents. Deck 7. Just like Voss had said. She stepped into a dim corridor lined with outdated maintenance drones long since decommissioned. Their eye lenses flickered weakly, ghost lights in the gloom. The hum of the station's reactor resonated through the floor, a deep and constant reminder that this place was alive, even if its people weren't. At the far end of the hall was a single door, marked with faded letters. Research Laboratory, Dr. Elias Ward. Mara's pulse quickened.
She pressed the access pad. It blinked red. Access denied.
Of course, she muttered, glancing around.
Then, quietly, human override.
She reached into her sleeve and drew out the small metallic chip, the same one that had triggered the lockdown.
Its surface shimmered faintly, reacting to her touch. She pressed it against the panel.
The door hissed open.
Inside, the lab was a monument of dust and memory. Holographic screens hung dormant in the air, their last readings frozen decades ago. Jars containing preserved tissues floated in amber fluid. Data drives blinked sporadically, like distant stars in a dark sky. And in the center of it all, standing before a cryogenic tank, was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, with streaks of silver through his dark hair. His face was tired but sharp, like a soldier who'd never quite stopped fighting. He turned as she entered, his gaze locking onto hers. "You must be Mara," he said, his voice deep and steady. "Voss sent you." Mara hesitated. "You're Dr. Ward?" "In what's left of me, yes."
He studied her closely.
"You triggered a genetic alarm. That means you're authentic." She swallowed. "I'm human." "I know," he said quietly. "And that's why you're in danger."
He motioned her closer.
"Do you know what the Council tells its people about humanity?"
"They say we destroyed ourselves," Mara replied. "That we were the deadliest species." Ward's mouth twitched, not quite a smile.
"Half true.
But the other half they buried." He turned to the cryogenic tank. Inside floated the still, perfectly preserved body of a woman, late 30s, auburn hair, eyes closed in eternal sleep.
"My wife," he said softly. "She was one of the last genetic scientists on Earth.
Her name was Dr. Lyra Ward. And she was the one who discovered what really ended humanity." Mara approached the glass, her reflection merging with the woman's.
"What happened?"
Ward activated a console, and a series of files appeared in the air, old video feeds, fragments of chaos.
Cities burning. Machines marching. Not AI rebellion, something else.
"It wasn't war," he said. "It was sterilization."
Mara frowned. "Sterilization?"
"The Council's ancestors, those who built the first orbitals, decided humanity was too volatile to survive planetary existence.
So they unleashed a genetic virus. A cure, they called it. It stopped reproduction.
Within a century, humanity simply faded out."
Mara's throat tightened. "You mean they erased us?"
"They called it mercy," Ward said bitterly.
But Lyra didn't agree. She encoded the last human genome sequence into a preservation chip and smuggled it off-world.
He turned toward Mara, eyes sharp now.
"That chip you're carrying, where did you get it?"
"My mother," Mara whispered. "She gave it to me before she disappeared."
Ward stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then your mother wasn't just anyone."
"She was part of the resistance." The word hit her like a pulse of electricity.
"The resistance?" He nodded. "A secret faction that survived the purge.
They hid among the hybrids, pretending obedience while working to protect what remained of humanity's memory.
But the Council found them one by one." He reached for the chip, studying its surface.
"If this is what I think it is, it contains the full genomic archive of the human species."
"That's why they're hunting you." Mara's voice trembled. "What do they want with it?" Ward's expression darkened. "They want to delete it. Permanently. The Council fears that the idea of humanity, its emotions, its defiance, its creativity, could resurface." "You're not just a threat to their order, Mara. You're proof they lied."
A sudden rumble shook the lab.
Lights flickered red. "Attention! Security breach in Sector 7. Terminate the anomaly."
Ward spun toward the door.
"They found us."
The sound of approaching drones echoed through the corridor, metallic footsteps, synchronized, merciless.
Ward moved to a control panel and yanked a lever. A hidden hatch opened in the floor. "Go, down the maintenance vent." it leads to the outer hull. What about you? Mara asked. I'll hold them off.
No, she said, grabbing his arm.
You can't fight them.
He met her eyes, and for a moment she saw something familiar in them, the same spark she'd seen in Voss.
I've spent my life hiding from ghosts. Maybe it's time I face them.
He pressed the chip back into her hand.
Keep this safe.
And if you make it out, find the core archive beneath the soul relay. It's where your kind story truly ends. The door burst open. Security drones flooded the lab, weapons glowing. Mara fell through the hatch just as the gunfire erupted. The last thing she saw was Ward turning toward the drones, arms outstretched, shouting something drowned by static and light.
She landed hard on a lower deck.
Pain flared through her shoulder, but she forced herself to run. The distant roar of explosions vibrated through the metal beneath her feet. Above, smoke began to pour from vents. Somewhere in the chaos, her wrist console flickered again.
Unknown source, keep running, Mara. You're almost there. She froze mid-stride. Who are you?
The reply came instantly.
A friend. And the last voice of your species. Her pulse thundered. Ahead, a hatch-marked external access SOL relay blinked faintly through the smoke.
She sprinted toward it, clutching the chip against her chest as alarms wailed and the stars beyond the viewport seemed to tremble. Behind her, the Academy, the last sanctuary of knowledge in orbit, began to burn. The stars were silent.
Mara Hale drifted through the wreckage of the orbital station, clinging to the emergency tether that kept her from being swallowed by the black. Explosions flickered in the distance, debris spinning like dying fireflies. She'd escaped through an external airlock moments before the main reactor went critical.
The once proud Interstellar Academy of Evolution was now nothing but a broken halo around the Earth it once mocked. Her visor reflected the world below, blue, green, deceptively peaceful. But she knew the truth buried beneath those clouds: humanity's cradle had become its crypt.
Deck compression holding, her suit's AI murmured.
She adjusted the propulsion ring at her waist and aimed for the glimmering satellite ahead, the Soul Relay. It was ancient, older than any recorded structure still functional in orbit. According to Dr. Ward's final words, it hid the core archive, the true record of humanity's fall. A pulse flickered across her wrist console.
Unknown source, you're close. I can guide you in.
She exhaled sharply.
You again. Who are you? Names are complicated. But you might know me as what your mother once called Echo.
Her heart skipped.
You knew my mother? She built me.
The static crackled through her helmet like a whisper from the past.
She designed me to safeguard humanity's story.
I was hidden within this relay when the purge began. But they sealed the archive.
Only a true human genome can unlock it. That's you, Mara. Mara's throat tightened. And if I do?
Then the truth returns to the stars. She accelerated toward the relay, her boots locking onto its weathered hull. The structure was immense, thousands of meters long, covered in panels scarred by micrometeorite impacts and centuries of neglect.
A faded emblem on its side still read, UN Interstellar Communications Division.
She located a maintenance hatch and pried it open. The inside was dark, filled with drifting dust and zero-gravity frost. Her suit lights illuminated walls lined with cables, consoles, and skeletal remains of machines long dead.
Follow the main corridor, Echo instructed. At the core, you'll find the archive gate.
Mara floated through the narrow tunnel, pushing off walls to propel herself forward. The silence pressed against her ears, broken only by the soft pulse of her oxygen feed. After several minutes, she entered a vast chamber, circular, cathedral-like, with a column of shimmering data threads spiraling in the center.
The archive gate.
Hundreds of holographic panels hovered around it, each frozen mid-image, faces of people, cities, oceans, moments.
Humanity's last memories suspended in digital amber.
It's beautiful, she whispered.
It's everything they erased, said Echo.
Insert the genome chip into the central console.
Mara floated to the panel and hesitated. Echo, what happens if I do this? You'll awaken the full record. But be warned, the Council programmed a countermeasure. They'll detect the activation instantly. She looked down at Earth through a broken viewport. Let them come. The truth deserves light. She took the chip, the one her mother had given her, the one men like Voss and Ward had died to protect, and slid it into the slot. The chamber came alive. Light burst through the dark like dawn after endless night. Data streams unfurled, cascading across the room in rivers of color. The holograms flickered, then stabilized. Voices whispered through the air, laughter, tears, music, screams. Humanity reborn in echoes of memory. Mara reached out, and for an instant, she stood amid the past. Cities thrived. Children played. Wars burned. Hope endured. Then came the final images, laboratories, frightened scientists, global broadcasts. The truth spilled out like blood from an old wound. Project Eden, a voice said, calm, clinical, merciless. To preserve the planet, the human genome must be terminated. The sterilization virus is authorized. Mara's hands trembled. They killed us, she whispered. Our own creations, our own leaders. Correction, said Echo softly. They killed themselves. You are what remains humanity's refusal to die. The chamber shuddered. A shrill alarm blared. Warning. Incoming Fleet Council enforcement drones, 24 units inbound. Mara clenched her fists. They found me. They will destroy the relay to prevent the release. Can we transmit the data? Yes, but the signal must be manually amplified. You'll need to reroute power from the core and ignite the primary relay. Meaning? Meaning you'll have to stay. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. The light danced across her visor, fragments of a dead species reaching for life. Then I'll stay, she said. Mara. Humanity started this mess, she said quietly. Maybe this is how we finish it, by finally telling the truth. She floated to the main terminal and began rerouting power. The system groaned in protest. Blue arcs of energy raced up the column, flooding the chamber with radiance. Outside, the first wave of Council drones broke formation, descending toward the relay like silver daggers. Transmit, Echo. Signal launching in 3, 2. The relay flared. A blinding pulse of light shot outward, racing through the void toward every listening post, every colony, every ship within range. Humanity's final record, every laugh, every failure, every moment released to the stars. Transmission complete, Echo whispered. But the drones were already upon them. They fired. Explosions tore through the relay's hull. Shards of molten metal spiraled outward. Mara braced herself against the console, alarms screaming in her helmet. Power core unstable, Echo said. You need to evacuate. No, she said softly, a tear floating free inside her visor. Someone has to make sure they can't erase it again. Mara, you'll die. She smiled faintly. Maybe. But then I'll finally be with them. The core went critical. A flood of white light consumed the chamber. And then, silence. Epilogue, the signal. Days later, across the galaxy, the transmission reached the colonies. Civilians stopped their work to watch as ancient footage filled their skies, the history of a species long condemned. They saw art and war, love and cruelty, creation and collapse. And they wept, because in those images, they saw themselves. Within the ruins of the destroyed relay, a single signal continued to pulse faintly, a heartbeat of data, looping endlessly. This is Mara Hale, the last human. We were not perfect. But we were alive. Remember that. Far below, on Earth's reborn forests, a small autonomous drone landed on soft soil. It projected a hologram, a woman's face, smiling gently, fading into light. Wind carried her words across the empty plains. Extinction is not the end. It's only the pause between heartbeats. And for the first time in 2,000 years, the world felt human again.